Alright, what's going on? I'm going to be doing a Mythic tier list today. So just to start off here, the first Mythic that we are ranking is going to be Anubis. I'm ranking these against each other, and I'm not going to be ordering them in the tiers themselves. So Anubis will be in A tier. Anubis is a unit that is very helpful in the late game, very helpful in the end game. However, Anubis is not really necessary or a crucial unit to complete any of those levels. The benefits of having the damage multipliers are heavily appreciated by carries, but Anubis is not going to be as important as those carries or as those game-changing units or those game-changing utility units. So Anubis is a very strong utility unit. A tier, can be helpful in any part of the game to assist with your clears and being able to get to the higher levels that you want to get to. Next up here we have Horus. Horus will go in S tier. A speed buff is always appreciated through units. We only have access to 2 unit speed buffs in the game. You either have Horus or you have Speedy. Both are very strong. You'll see both of them being used in pretty much every late game, end game setup. When you have 2, you pretty much always use 2. This was less common when Godspeed charms weren't patched yet. However, Godspeed charms are patched, so speed boosts are still not as important as they used to be, right? You still have skill cooldown charms. However, speed boosts are still that strong, so they're still going to be in the S tier. Next up here, we have Ra. Now, Ra has one use and one use only, and that's to be used in IQT. Because of that, and because of how crucial Ra is in IQT, that single purpose carries Ra into A tier for me. IQT is a crucial pillar in the endgame, and it leads to the best evolution in the game, which would be Archimedes in my opinion. So Ra is very important, even if you have a setup with a ton of mythics, King in Yellow, Amaterasu, Susanoo, all those other units that you really like. Your setup in IQT will generally struggle to function without Ra, and again, very important level. So Ra is up here in A tier. Next up, Hades. I will put Hades in A tier. Why? Because Hades is solid damage dealer throughout the entire game, and Hades can also be used in KPR as a KPR carry. Now, of course, Hades is overshadowed by units in each of these categories, right? Although Hades has good damage throughout the game, you can probably find cheaper, better units or just objectively stronger units at max level throughout the entire game, right? Amaterasu is an example of Hades being replaced in KPR. However, Hades is a consistent, solid damage dealer. I used to put Hades in B tier a lot. However, I understand that not everyone can really access all the mythic rotations at once, and it's realistic that in many situations you won't have something like an Amaterasu, but you will have something like a Hades, and Hades is a pretty solid KPR carry, although KPR evolutions haven't came out, so it doesn't matter too much. But Hades is a pretty good unit, right? Zeus now goes in A tier. I understand that a certain unit, which I'll get to later, is able to turn your units into cosmics, and that kind of takes away some of the value of the elemental specific carries. However, Zeus is still very prevalent as an IQT carry if you do not have access to the Lovecraftian Pantheon and you are just looking to find a solid unit to clear IQT. You can kind of go back to some of those IQT setups developed before the Cosmic update, and then Zeus is a very good carry there. Zeus also has really strong utility, as Zeus can stun enemies with his basic attacks, and it combos very nicely with slows from a unit such as Jiraiya or a unit such as Sluggy. Pretty good for stalling out units. So Zeus has value both as a staller and as a damage dealer, although overshadowed, still very strong. Alright, Poseidon here is going to go in D tier for me. The general issue with Poseidon is that Poseidon effectively has no use, right? Poseidon is this water unit, but you don't really need, okay, let me put it this way, right? Although Poseidon is a water unit, Poseidon's not really that good of a water unit, right? So you can't really use Poseidon as a volcano goddess carry because Poseidon's just not that strong, and Poseidon really serves no other use. The damage is just not there, the ability pattern is not there, and there's no significant ability, right? A very small water damage buff is not really enough to carry Poseidon out of D tier. So that's where Poseidon is. Amaterasu is going into S tier. Obviously, Amaterasu is pretty much the best damage dealer in the game, I would say, especially after King in Yellow's edition. Amaterasu can be used in pretty much any level. I mean, even if you don't have King in Yellow, Amaterasu can be used in almost every level as well, whether it's for the global damage to speed up your farming setups, whether it's for the raw DPS to get completes, or whether it's for taking advantage of the fire element. So Amaterasu is a carry, a good unit for farming, and overall just, right, the raw damage is just incredibly good. All right, Susanoo goes in A tier for me. So Susanoo's presence is never really necessary because it's literally just the shop rock summons, which you can just get with gems anyway, so you are sacrificing a little bit of setup strength when you are using Susanoo. However, realistically, when you are farming and in the age of auto clickers, Susanoo is very, very important for being able to automize setups, make the most out of your auto clicker, get more value out of them. And honestly, I think most players who are playing at a high level on their accounts probably are using an auto clicker, right? And so that greatly benefits from Susanoo. Of course, if you are a earlier game player, maybe gems are a little bit more scarce, then Susanoo can also save you gems on the rock summons as well. But honestly, the main purpose of Susanoo is to be able to automize stuff. And, you know, that's very important in my opinion. Some people value it differently. However, I think that auto clickers are a very valuable resource in the game. And Susanoo is crucial for their consistent success in challenges that require rock summons. All right, Jiraiya goes into S tier for me. Jiraiya, probably second best damage dealer in the game, only second to Amaterasu, a little bit overshadowed by the raw damage output. However, Jiraiya also has the slow utility and the insane amount of range to be used as a main carry in the classic level farming setups, right? Whether it's stuff for like King 1-5, you're just farming gold, or you're just trying to look for, I don't know, gems probably. Yeah, great unit, very versatile, very strong, and can be played in pretty much any level for damage or for utility. Alright, Soul Sidon will go in C tier here. Soul Sidon is the evolution of Poseidon and has one very niche use in Wrath of Volcano Goddess that is honestly almost non-existent now with all the new setups that you can use there with King and Yellow. But yeah, sometimes you'll see a Soul Sidon used in a Wrath of Volcano Goddess setup to be used as secondary or third damage. You'll never really see this unit as the main carry, but can help out a little bit, I guess. I would say the Mythic units I put in C and D tier just really aren't that great. C tier is probably like a niche use, D tier is probably no use. Alright, and Bastet here? Yeah, I was gonna say B tier. Alright, Bastet. Bastet's not D tier though. Bastet is D tier. B tier? D tier? I don't know. Yeah, Bastet's D tier because Bastet provides pretty much nothing, right? Damage isn't great. The stun is not super great. It isn't stun that lasts for a while. You can get quite a few enemies, but it's usually just better to use something like an Archimedes or a Slime King. They can stun globally, and their stun durations are, you know, pretty strong. So there's never really a need to use Bastet, and her stun is just really not that important. And you can probably get something similar to it if you are just using like an Archangel or whatever, right? Usually when you see stuns in the game, especially later on, it's all just going to be sort of global stuns or stuns that have very fast frequencies. And, you know, Bastet's just mediocre in what she does, mediocre in her utility, mediocre in her damage, and not really going to be utilized. All right, Hanzo here can go into, what, like B tier for me? I think Hanzo is capable of having a pretty good use in classic level farming setups, but apart from that, pretty much no use. A nightmare carry, I guess. I don't think the role of nightmare carries really matter now though, because of charms and because of how you can turn so many different units and try so many different combinations to get your nightmare completes. But Hanzo's here in B tier, helps out a little bit in farming setups, right? Next up here we have Artemis. Artemis is a pure DPS unit that has absolutely garbage DPS, so D tier. Alright, King and Yellow is a easy S tier. The reason behind King and Yellow's S tier is because King and Yellow completely changes the game and makes it so that elemental levels that originally weren't beatable are now completable, right? You can complete pretty much everything in the game utilizing a King and Yellow setup. However, despite King and Yellow being incredibly strong, King and Yellow is dependent on having other good units, right? That's where stuff like Amaterasu or Jiraiya comes into play. So King and Yellow is very good, but you need to understand how to use it, right? Not going to be an early game unit, not going to be a mid game unit. King and Yellow is really going to be an end game unit that benefits when you already have end game monsters. Although you can also combo stuff like Devon and Deathlight in Cosmic Tower. I guess King and Yellow is a very important unit in Cosmic Tower, but definitely a end game, late game unit that you need to have an understanding on how to use. However, when King and Yellow does play that role, it just becomes so ridiculously powerful. So S tier. All right, next up here with Cthulhu. I'm not calling I'm not saying cute Cthulhu. I'm saying Cthulhu, okay? Cthulhu goes into C tier here. Serves a pretty niche use just as a Cosmic Tower carry, but is heavily overshadowed by King and Yellow and what King and Yellow setups are capable of. Same thing with the Nikorat. Yeah, I don't know. Just say Goat Mom, okay? Goat Mom C tier. Same issue as Cthulhu, overshadowed by King and Yellow, only used in Cosmic Tower realistically. Just the damage on these units aren't really great, and the abilities aren't super strong when you compare them to the other carries you have access to. And honestly, in Cosmic Tower, probably a Deathbite or a Devin can carry harder with King and Yellow. And they're all in the same rotation, right? So just get your King and Yellow. I know rerolling is harder now, but go for it. It's a very important unit, S tier unit. Okay, so I think this looks like a Mythic tier list that I generally agree with. I think most of the rankings here are justified. All the rankings here are justified. So yeah, that's my Mythic tier list. If you skipped here, hello, welcome. All right, yeah, like, subscribe, and yeah, so yeah, I hope this tier list thing wasn't too bad. All right, cool, bye. Oh, my JR normal gameplay ended. Okay, cool.